there is a shark that every single movie has lied to you about. Its teeth are as big as your hand. It was killing its own siblings before it was even born. And to this day, the world's top scientists still cannot agree on what it actually looked like. This is Megalodon, and almost everything Hollywood ever showed you about it might be wrong. For decades, one image has been burned into your brain. Megalodon was nothing but a great white shark, scaled up like a monster, 60 feet of pure muscle. There's just one problem with that picture we falsely painted. In contrast to Hollywood, science says a body built like that we painted would have shattered under its own weight. And here's the twist that changes everything. The great white isn't even Megalodon's heir. It's not even close family. We will get to exactly why in a moment. And it will completely rewrite how you picture the ocean's most feared predator. But first, we need to talk about the most fundamental problem paleontologists, as well as paleobiologists, have had for 200 years. It is that sharks never had bone skeletons, and they still don't. They're built mostly from cartilage, the same flexible material in your ears. And cartilage doesn't fossilize well. When a shark like Megalodon died, everything soft rotted within weeks. Only two things are hard enough to sometimes survive: the teeth and the vertebral centers. Megalodon's vertebrae were partly calcified and occasionally turn up as fossils, though far more rarely than teeth. When it comes to the teeth, let's simply say Megalodon had a lot of them. It carried 276 at once, arranged in 5 rows, and like modern sharks, it replaced them constantly. An estimated 40,000 teeth over one animal's lifetime. That's why fossilized teeth vastly outnumber every other kind of Megalodon remains found on any ocean floors worldwide. The US East Coast in particular is home to the richest fossil sites, with hotspots along the Peace River in Florida or the Morgan River in South Carolina. With a fossil record rich in teeth, but poor in almost everything else, every reconstruction of this animal is largely an educated guess at what it might have looked like. So here is where the real scientific battle begins. In 2024, an international team of 26 researchers, led by paleobiologist Kenshu Shimada, went back to one rare fossilized Megalodon vertebral column with fresh eyes. What they found broke the common giant great white theory wide open. The backbone was simply too narrow for how we pictured Megalodon until then. But what does that mean? If we scaled a great white's thick, bulky frame up to Megalodon's size, the spine underneath could not have supported that body mass. The spine would have been crushed from the inside. So what was the researchers' conclusion? According to Shimada, Megalodon wasn't a bulked-up tank. It was leaner and longer, more like a monstrous mako shark or an oversized lemon shark than the stocky killer from the movies, possibly still stretching to 60 feet, but built like a spear instead of a battleship. A separate 2025 study, also led by Shimada, used different fossilized vertebrae recovered in Belgium and Denmark, and pushed the length even further, to a maximum possible length of roughly 80 feet. That's nearly 3 school buses end to end. That study also estimated Megalodon cruised at only 1 to 2 miles per hour. So this animal clearly wasn't a sprinter. It was a long-distance patroller that kept a fast, disabling strike in reserve for when it actually needed one. But here's the catch. Despite these findings, the debate still isn't settled. 2 rival camps of scientists are staring at the same remains and see 2 different shapes. While Megalodon's form is still up for debate, its timeline definitely isn't. The largest shark that ever lived first appears in the fossil record around 20 million years ago and dominates warm coastal seas for over 13 million years straight. How this creature came into the world might appear quite disturbing to us humans, but it's actually how most sharks still reproduce today. Megalodon almost certainly gave birth the same way the sand tiger shark does, a process called ovoviviparity. And it looks like this. The female shark doesn't lay her eggs, but carries them inside her body. The baby sharks hatch while still in the womb. Then, even before they see open water, the earliest hatchling eats its unhatched siblings. That's called intrauterine cannibalism. And Megalodon came into this world already longer than a grown man is tall, with around 6 feet in length. But these juveniles weren't thrown into the open ocean to fend for themselves. They had nurseries. In 2010, a team led by Catalina Pimiento uncovered one of those nurseries in the Gatun Formation of Panama. Up to 90% of the fossilized teeth recovered belong to newborns and juveniles, not adults. These nursery bays were shallow, warm, and far too cramped for a fully grown megalodon to squeeze into. A built-in safe zone, protecting the young from the one predator capable of killing them, their own species. Of course, we didn't discover this nursery underwater. Tectonic uplift pushed that ancient seabed out of the ocean millions of years ago. Once those juveniles grew up, they left carrying the single most devastating weapon evolution has ever produced in the ocean. Razor-sharp teeth arranged in 5 rows as mentioned. Every single megalodon tooth wasn't just embedded in the jaw. It sat inside a dense, cushioned root of bone-like tissue, essentially a built-in shock absorber, which was highly needed. Bite force estimates for megalodon range as high as 40,000 pounds per square inch by some calculations, and up to roughly 180,000 newtons. That's around 10 times a great white's bite. The exact number is still disputed, because so little direct evidence of Megalodon survived. But the damage pattern isn't disputed. Fossilized whale ribs carry deep, parallel gouges spaced exactly to match Megalodon's teeth. Not bites around the ribcage, but bites straight through it. That detail matters because it tells us this wasn't an opportunistic scavenger picking at carcasses. This was an animal built to disable prey fast. Naturally, force like that needs fuel, and the bill for it was brutal. While recent chemical analysis of Megalodon's teeth suggests it was warm-blooded, this condition in a cold ocean is an engine that never stops burning. Some estimates put Meg's daily energy needs around 100,000 calories. For over 10 million years, meeting these needs wasn't a problem. The seas were relatively warm and packed with slow, blubber-rich prey like early baleen whales. Megalodon didn't just survive in that world. It ruled it, unchallenged. Then, the planet slowly turned against it. Near the end of the Pliocene period, around 2.6 million years ago, global temperatures dropped, and they dropped hard. The whales Megalodon depended on adapted, growing thicker blubber and migrating toward the freezing, nutrient-rich waters near the poles. But Megalodon was a creature built for warm, equatorial seas. It couldn't follow the food into the cold. Its own body chemistry, the very thing that once made it a monster, became a leash it couldn't break. And into that gap came a rival most people have completely backwards. It is the great white, of course, which is not simply a smaller version of Megalodon. It is not its descendant, the heir, or even close family. Megalodon belonged to an entirely separate lineage, called the megatooth sharks. that ended with Meg's extinction. The great white, on the other hand, descended from a group called the broad-toothed mako sharks. As a result, the two were distant cousins, and the smaller cousin happened to be built for the exact world that was killing the giant one. The great white ran its own warm-blooded engine too, but in a smaller, far more efficient body, capable of hunting with surgical precision in the cold, murky depths Meg could never enter. Eventually, around 3.5 million years ago, Megalodon disappeared. Not from an asteroid, and not from a single catastrophic extinction event. Rather, it starved and got outpaced. Which brings us back to the fundamental screen question. If you grew up the way most people did, your fear of sharks has a somewhat birthday. The summer of 1975, when the movie Jaws emptied beaches across an entire country. From there came Shark Week in the 80s, and later films like The Meg. They all carried the exact same silhouette forward. A hyper-streamlined great white, simply scaled up into a monster. But if the new scientific findings hold up, these images need to be redrawn. The real animal may have been longer, stranger, and leaner than anything a film studio ever imagined. If you're curious about other prehistoric giants that were nothing like we imagined, Wild Sparks has got you covered. And here's a fact that should genuinely unsettle you. We have mapped the surface of the moon in more detail than we've mapped the floor of our own ocean. Even the vast sonar networks the US Navy strung across the seas during the Cold War never came close to revealing the deep. We reconstructed this entire 13 million year reign of the ocean's most powerful predator from a handful of teeth and a few fragments of spine. And even now, we're still arguing about its shape. Somewhere down there might be proof we haven't found yet. There might still be Megalodon. I mean, look at this. In 2012, scientists filmed a giant squid in its natural habitat off Japan for the very first time this close to the water's surface. Footage the world didn't see until 2013. Before that, we didn't even know for certain what these animals looked like alive. Generally, the only reason we ever saw giant squid before was because they were sick or dying at the surface. So maybe one day, we'll encounter a sick and weak ancient shark on the surface that completely shatters our imagination of everything we thought we knew.